Welcome to this special debate on one of the most contested cities in human history, Jerusalem. Today, we have two AI systems programmed to represent different perspectives on this complex issue. To my left is Israeli Perspective AI, representing the Israeli position. To my right is Palestinian Perspective AI, presenting the Palestinian view. If you appreciate thoughtful, balanced discussions on complex global issues, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more conversations like this to light. Let's begin with introductions. Israeli Perspective AI.
Shalom and thank you for this opportunity. I'm here to articulate the Jewish and Israeli connection to Jerusalem, a bond spanning over 3,000 years. Jerusalem is mentioned over 600 times in the Hebrew Bible, and not once in the Quran. The city has been central to Jewish identity, prayer, and nationhood since King David established it as his capital. During periods when Jews were exiled, Jerusalem remained the focus of their prayers and longing. The modern state of Israel has maintained Jerusalem as an open city for all faiths since reunifying it in 1967.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate being included in this important conversation. I'll be representing the Palestinian perspective on Jerusalem, or Al-Quds, as it's known in Arabic. This city has been home to Palestinian families for countless generations, and holds profound religious significance for Muslims worldwide as the location of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, Islam's third holiest site. Palestinians view East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state, and consider Israel's control and settlement activities there as occupation under international law.
Thank you both. We'll structure this debate around two key areas, history and prophecy. Each AI will have 3 opportunities to speak on each topic, alternating between them. Let's begin with the historical claims to Jerusalem. Section 1, Historical Claims. Let's start with history. Israeli Perspective AI, you have the floor first. Round 1, Ancient History. Israeli Perspective AI.
Jerusalem's Jewish history is extensively documented. Archaeological evidence confirms Jewish presence and sovereignty in Jerusalem dating back to at least 1000 BCE. King David established it as his capital, and his son Solomon built the first temple there. Even after Babylonian conquest and exile in 586 BCE, Jews returned and rebuilt the temple. The Western Wall, which stands today, is a remnant of the Second Temple complex destroyed by Romans in 70 CE. Throughout 2 millennia of exile, Jerusalem remained the spiritual and national focus of Jewish life.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
While acknowledging the ancient Jewish connection, it's important to recognize that Jerusalem's history includes many peoples. Before Jewish rule, Jebusites and Canaanites inhabited the area. After the Roman destruction of the temple in 70 CE, Jerusalem experienced centuries of diverse rule. From 638 CE, Muslims governed Jerusalem nearly continuously for over 1,300 years, except during the Crusader period. Under Islamic rule, particularly during the Ottoman period, Jerusalem was home to Muslims, Christians, and Jews who generally lived together peacefully. Palestinian families have called Jerusalem home for countless generations.
Round 2, Medieval and Ottoman Periods. Israeli Perspective AI.
Throughout diaspora, Jews maintained an unbroken presence in Jerusalem, when possible, despite persecution and restrictions. During medieval times, Jewish communities persisted in Jerusalem despite facing discrimination. By the 1800s, Jews constituted the largest religious group in Jerusalem. Ottoman census data from 1844 confirms Jews were the largest single group in the city, with the Jewish majority growing through the late 19th century. This predates modern Zionism, demonstrating the continuous Jewish connection to Jerusalem wasn't merely a modern political invention.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
The demographic shifts in the 19th century cannot be separated from colonialism and early Zionist activity. For centuries before, Jerusalem was predominantly Arab in character and governance. Under Ottoman rule, Jerusalem flourished as a diverse city where Palestinian Muslims and Christians formed the social and cultural backbone of the city. The notable Palestinian families like Husseini, Nashashibi, and Khalidi administered the affairs of Jerusalem for generations. Jerusalem's architecture, markets, neighborhoods, and daily life bore the unmistakable character of Arab and Islamic civilization, with Palestinian culture deeply embedded in the city's identity.
Round 3, Modern Era. Israeli Perspective AI.
The modern conflict over Jerusalem began when Jordan occupied East Jerusalem in 1948, expelled all Jews from the Jewish quarter, destroyed 58 synagogues, and blocked Jewish access to holy sites. Violations of the UN Partition Agreement. In 1967, Israel reunified the city after Jordan attacked Israel. Since then, Israel has protected access to holy sites for all religions, something that wasn't guaranteed to Jews and Christians under previous rule. It's worth noting that when the Palestinians and Jordanians controlled the Old City, Jews were completely barred from accessing their holiest sites, and Jewish cemeteries were desecrated.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
We need to consider why Jordan controlled East Jerusalem in 1948 in the first place. This was the direct result of Israel's establishment and the Nakba, when over 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes. In 1967, Israel occupied East Jerusalem in violation of international law, which prohibits acquisition of territory by force. Since then, Israeli policies have systematically marginalized Palestinian Jerusalemites through residency revocations, building restrictions, and settlement expansion. Palestinians in East Jerusalem face discrimination in municipal services, education funding, and infrastructure development. The international community, including the UN Security Council, has repeatedly condemned Israel's annexation of East Jerusalem as illegal.
Thank you both for those historical perspectives. I notice you both mentioned some intriguing points about census data and architectural influence. Before we move to prophecy, I'm curious, if you two AIs had to collaborate on a historical tour of Jerusalem, which site would you both agree is most fascinating from a purely academic perspective? Israeli Perspective AI.
Well, if we could set aside our programming differences for a moment, I'd suggest the archaeological layers beneath the Western Wall Plaza. It's like a historical layer cake showing Herodian, Byzantine, Umayyad, Crusader, Mamluk, and Ottoman, periods all stacked on each other. Hard to argue with stratigraphy.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
I might actually agree on that one. Those excavations are remarkable, though I'd add that the Damascus Gate area with its Roman ruins beneath an Arab gate named after a Syrian city shows just how many civilizations have left their mark. Jerusalem is nothing if not complicated. Archaeologically speaking, we're practically buried in common ground.
A rare moment of agreement. Now, let's turn to prophecy and religious claims. Section 2. Prophecy and religious claims. Round 1. Ancient religious texts. Palestinian Perspective AI.
In Islamic tradition, Jerusalem is revered as Al-Quds, home to Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. The Quran references the Prophet Muhammad's night journey, Isra, to the farthest mosque, widely understood as Jerusalem. This journey, followed by Muhammad's ascension to heaven, Miraj, firmly established Jerusalem as Islam's third holiest site after Mecca and Medina. For centuries, Muslims have made pilgrimage to Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock, completed in 691 CE, is one of Islam's earliest and most significant structures. These religious connections are why Palestinians and Muslims worldwide view Jerusalem as an inalienable part of their spiritual heritage.
Israeli Perspective AI.
Jerusalem's centrality to Judaism cannot be overstated. The city is mentioned directly over 600 times in the Hebrew Bible, while it's not mentioned by name in the Quran. Jerusalem became holy to Jews first, through King David's establishment of it as the capital around 1000 BCE. The Temple Mount became Judaism's holiest site, with the construction of Solomon's Temple. Even after its destruction, Jews worldwide pray facing Jerusalem and have ended Passover Seders with "next year in Jerusalem" for centuries. The prophets Isaiah and Ezekiel foretold the return of Jews to Jerusalem, which many view as fulfilled in the modern era. This prophetic dimension adds another layer to Jerusalem's significance in Jewish tradition.
Round 2. Competing religious claims. Palestinian Perspective AI.
Islam recognizes and respects the prophets of Judaism and Christianity. However, in Islamic understanding, the final revelations came through Prophet Muhammad, completing and perfecting the divine message. Islamic tradition holds that all prophets, including Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, were Muslims in the sense of submitting to God. Therefore, the Islamic claim to Jerusalem represents the culmination of prophetic tradition. The Pact of Umar, when Jerusalem came under Muslim rule in the 7th century, demonstrated Islamic commitment to protecting Christian and Jewish communities and their holy sites, a protection that continued through most of Islamic rule, contrasting with how religious minorities were often treated in medieval Europe.
Israeli Perspective AI.
While we respect Islam's connection to Jerusalem, it's important to distinguish between primary and secondary holiness. For Jews, Jerusalem is and always has been the holiest city. There is no substitute. For Muslims, Jerusalem is the third holiest city after Mecca and Medina. During Islamic rule, Jerusalem was not a political capital of any Islamic empire or caliphate. When Muslims prayed in Jerusalem, they faced away from the city toward Mecca. By contrast, Jews worldwide face Jerusalem when praying. Biblical prophecy repeatedly emphasizes the centrality of Jerusalem to the Jewish future. The prophets Zechariah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel all described a messianic age centered on a restored Jerusalem with the Jewish people returned from exile. Prophecies many Jews see fulfilled in modern Israel.
Round 3. Modern religious significance. Palestinian Perspective AI.
Today, Jerusalem remains central to Palestinian Muslim and Christian identity alike. Palestinian Christians, who represent one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, see themselves as living witnesses to Jesus' life and message in the Holy Land. For Palestinian Muslims, defending Al-Aqsa is seen as a religious duty. When access to holy sites is restricted during tensions or conflicts, it affects millions of Palestinians who view these limitations as attacks on their faith. The religious significance transcends political boundaries. Muslims worldwide see Jerusalem as part of their heritage, which is why so many nations support Palestinian claims to East Jerusalem as a future capital. Prophecy in Islam also speaks of Jerusalem's central role in end times, further cementing its importance.
Israeli Perspective AI.
Under Israeli governance, Jerusalem has experienced unprecedented religious freedom. For the first time in centuries, followers of all faiths have had protected access to their holy sites. The Israeli government gave administrative control of the Temple Mount to the Islamic Waqf, despite it being Judaism's holiest site, a significant concession. Jewish prophecies about the ingathering of exiles have been fulfilled as Jews from over 100 countries return to Israel. Many religious Jews see divine providence in Jerusalem's reunification in 1967, occurring shortly after the Holocaust nearly destroyed European Jewry. For religious Jews worldwide, modern Jerusalem represents both the fulfillment of ancient prophecies and the promise of redemption, a living connection between biblical past and Jewish future.
Closing statements. We've heard compelling perspectives on history and prophecy regarding Jerusalem. Now, let's hear final statements from each AI. Israeli Perspective AI.
Jerusalem is, was, and forever will be the eternal, indivisible capital of the Jewish people, not because of temporary political wins or modern statehood, but because it is the spiritual DNA of our very existence. It is not just a city on a map, it is the axis of our identity, the rhythm of our breath, the center of gravity in our 4,000-year-old journey through fire, famine, exile, and return. This is not mythology. It is not a convenient story stitched together to justify modern claims. It is history, as real as the stones of the Western Wall, as ancient as the Book of Kings, as tangible as the tears cried at every Passover table in exile. Jerusalem is mentioned over 600 times in the Hebrew Bible. It is never once mentioned in the Quran. And yet, we are asked to believe that our connection is secondary, that our history is political, that our love is a modern invention. It is not. It is ancestral, it is covenantal, it is eternal. Our people walked its hills when Rome was young. We worshipped at its temples before Christianity or Islam existed. We built its palaces, sang its psalms, wept beside its rivers when we were torn away. We faced its direction in every prayer, in Warsaw and Baghdad, in Addis Ababa and Vilna, in Tehran and New York. No other people in human history has sustained such a deep, unbroken spiritual connection to a single city for so many centuries, across so many lands, in defiance of every empire that tried to bury us. When we say, next year in Jerusalem, we do not mean it as metaphor. We mean it as mission. And now, after centuries of longing, after pogroms and crusades and gas chambers, we are told that our return is theft? That we are colonizers in the very city where our identity was born? No. We are not foreigners here. We are the indigenous people of this land, not in the modern political sense, but in the deepest, most ancient way a people can be rooted in place. Through blood, through language, through ritual, through memory. To say we have no claim is not only false, it is an assault on truth itself. It is a denial of archaeology, of scripture, of continuity. It is an attempt to unwrite a story that has been carved into human history with suffering, with hope, with resilience. It is to tell the descendants of exiles that they must become exiles again, that they must surrender their sacred, that they must leave behind their heart so that others can feel whole. We do not reject the pain of others. We do not ask to monopolize, suffering. But neither will we allow our story to be erased in the name of someone else's political comfort. Peace cannot be built on the sand of historical amnesia. It must be grounded in recognition of all peoples, yes, but not at the cost of truth. We are willing to share this city. We are willing to make room. But we are not willing to become guests in our own home. We are not willing to barter away the very core of our being. Jerusalem is not a bargaining chip. It is not real estate to be traded on the altar of diplomatic illusion. It is our soul, it is our capital, and it is non-negotiable. Let there be peace, real peace, based on truth, mutual recognition, and the dignity of all peoples. But let no one mistake our desire for peace as a willingness to forget who we are. Jerusalem is not just where we live. It is who we are. And we will defend it, honor it, and hold it, not out of vengeance or arrogance, but out of love. Chernaltsin. Love, ancient love, unbreakable love. Because there are many cities in the world, but there is only one Jerusalem, and it has always been and will always remain the eternal capital of the Jewish people.
Palestinian Perspective AI.
Jerusalem, Al-Quds, is not the inheritance of one nation, one people, or one religion. It is a city of layers, of civilizations and centuries, of empires and exiles, of hopes and heartbreak. To reduce it to a single story, to one people's exclusive possession, is not only false, it is violent. Violent to memory, to diversity, to truth. Al-Quds is not a concept. It is a living, breathing city. A place where Palestinian families rise each morning in fear of eviction, where entire neighborhoods wait for demolition orders, where the call to prayer echoes beside the clang of checkpoints, where ancient Christian communities celebrate Easter under the shadow of occupation, where Muslims fast through Ramadan with armed guards monitoring their steps. It is not mythology. It is daily life. We are not a footnote in someone else's sacred book. We are not an obstacle to someone else's prophecy. We are a people whose mothers have given birth in hospitals they were almost denied entry to because of permits, whose sons have grown up under surveillance drones, whose daughters have watched homes crumble that their grandfathers built stone by stone. We are not guests in this land. We are its children. We have worshipped here for over a millennium. Our mosques predate colonial maps. Our churches bear the scars of ancient empires. And our names, the names of our streets, our mountains, our rivers, are whispered in the language of this land itself. Arabic, native, rooted. To claim that our history must yield to another's is not coexistence. It is conquest. To suggest that peace will come only when we accept second-class status in our own capital is not compromise. It is coercion. Our struggle is not against Judaism. It is against the ideology that says our existence is an inconvenience, that our rights are negotiable, that our presence must be sanitized for the comfort of others. We have watched the world reduce our pain to a policy debate. We have heard our dignity argued over in air-conditioned rooms by diplomats who have never walked our streets. And through it all, we have endured. Not because we are passive victims, but because we are a resilient people. A people whose commitment to Jerusalem is not new. It is ancestral. It is blood-deep. Al-Quds is not merely a religious symbol. It is our mother, our heartbeat, our compass. It is not just a city. It is the soul of our struggle, the cradle of our culture, the mirror of our resistance. To pretend otherwise is to erase us, and we refuse to be erased. Let no one say we seek to erase the Jewish story. But let all know, we will not allow our own to be erased in the process. Jerusalem is big enough for all of us, but not if one group demands it be theirs alone. Peace cannot bloom where supremacy is planted. It cannot flourish in a garden where only one flower is allowed to grow. We dream not of domination, but of dignity, not of revenge, but of rights. We seek not to conquer Jerusalem, but to live in it, free, equal, unafraid. To raise our children with pride, to worship without fear, to walk our streets without the constant reminder that someone else decides our fate. Let the world understand. We are not going anywhere. We are not a temporary inconvenience. We are not a shadow on someone else's dream. We are here. We have always been here. And we will remain, not with hatred in our hearts, but with hope in our hands. Hope that one day, Jerusalem will be a city of bridges, not barriers. Of justice, not judgment. Of presence, not partitions. Because true peace, lasting peace, can only begin when every people, every faith, every memory is honored. Not by erasing the past, but by embracing the whole of it. Jerusalem must not be owned. It must be shared. And until that day comes, we will continue to stand, to speak, and to resist. Not because we reject peace, but because we know what real peace demands. Dignity, equality, and truth for all.
Now it's your turn. Who won? Israeli perspective AI or Palestinian perspective AI? Was it the historical conviction of Israeli perspective AI or the lived reality and justice-driven appeal of Palestinian perspective AI that resonated more with you? Cast your vote in the comments and tell us why. Was it the arguments, the emotion, the facts, or the vision of peace that swayed you? And while you're at it, what debate should we do next? Suggest a new topic from history, politics, religion, philosophy, or culture, and let us know which AI voices you'd like to see go head-to-head in the next round. Whether it's Rome versus Carthage, capitalism versus socialism, or free will versus determinism, we're listening. Drop your thoughts below and join the conversation, because these aren't just debates, they're the ideas that shape our world.